And this happens over 10 years. Like, she's killing people over 10 years, and without confessing, like, who knows if she would have been caught, you know?
Mm-hmm. Healthcare horrors. Murder.
I think we're ready.
Are we?
Or Dolan's just going to take over this podcast and talk about radiation.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Healthcare Horrors. It is Dolan here on the knobs, and with me today I have Ashlee, brand specialist at Atlas Med Staff. Say what's up.
What's up?
And Alicia Carasella, your veteran recruiter.
AKA hand tattoo.
Hand tattoo. Look, you can't get away with any murders because
They're gonna know.
they're gonna see your hand tattoo.
I can't be like on any CCTV footage because it's me.
Yeah, so, previously you're talking about getting away with it. You might want to use some makeup to cover that up if you ever decide to kill anybody.
Spoiled my plans.
Or
But
he's
yes.
helping you. I don't know.
If I was gonna do something illegal, I would probably just disguise myself entirely. Get a wig. Obviously cover the hand tattoo.
Mm-hmm,
Wig, hand tattoo.
You got to do something about the bright green nails, too. They'd be like,
I'll just wear black gloves.
this murderer, she had bright green or he. I guess you don't know. But you
True.
don't have manly hands.
I'm a she.
Woohoo.
So,
what we
good
talked
job.
about last time? Who failed at covering their murder?
Last time we talked about Kristen Gilbert, a nurse who had a pretty good life and her motives were unclear why she killed her patients, but she killed a lot of people.
I think she's killed the most people of anybody we talked about.
Yes.
So far.
Wow.
I mean, she wasn't convicted. She was only convicted for 4, but
Right, speculation.
but right, the
What was-
numbers lead us to believe that up to 350 people
Nuts.
died on her watch.
Nuts.
So, this week we are going to talk about a Canadian serial killer named Elizabeth Wettlaufer. She was born Elizabeth Tracy May, and she was called Beth Wetloffer. She was born June...
Wait, Parker.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Parker.
Parker.
Parker. That's her last name.
Elizabeth Tracy May Parker.
Yes.
Called Beth.
Bam.
Yes, Parker.
So Beth Parker.
Yes.
Little Bethy Parker.
Yes, and she was born June 10th, 1967, which makes her a Gemini.
There we go.
And Geminis are known for being chatty and curious.
Okay.
I don't know if this is going to come into play or not, but that's what it says. If it's on the internet, it must be true. Are either of you a Gemini?
No.
Scorpios?
Nope.
Aquarius.
You're Aquarius? Oh, yeah, you
Yeah.
are Aquarius. I'm Aquarius.
I'm a Virgo.
Virgo.
I'm all about the earth and hugging the trees.
Honestly, that tracks. All right. Elizabeth Wettlaufer was born and raised in Zora Township, which is a rural community near Woodstock, Ontario. She grew up in a Baptist household, and they were very religious, and she even went on to earn a bachelor's degree in religious education counseling from London Baptist Bible College after graduating from Huron Park Secondary School in the mid-1980s.
Growing up, she was bullied a lot in school. She didn't really feel like she belonged anywhere. She even tried branching out, and she was in school activities like band, and she was into sports, but she was still just unaccepted. And she realized at an early age that she was attracted to females, and growing up in a very strict religious household, that was definitely frowned upon, and it just led to her feeling even more lost and confused and a lot of self-loathing. So I kind of feel bad. She just didn't have anyone to reach out to and who understood her.
Mm-hmm.
I also had once her dad found out that she was going to a gay-friendly church and possibly had a girlfriend, he tried putting her in reparative therapy or conversion therapy. Yeah. And for those who don't know, it's basically they think, being gay is a mental illness and it can just be fixed. And obviously it didn't. It led to
Right.
her feeling worse about herself.
Yeah, because they try to beat it out of you or shock it out of you, like electroshock therapy
Yeah.
sometimes. Like, and they use all kinds of like really obscene
Terrible.
kind of methods of, you know, like they kind of make you like a girl who's into other girls, like they make you sexually touch another guy or something to say like, no, this is what it is. Like conversion therapy is very
Yeah.
very intense and mentally scarring, and I blame nobody for having mental issues after being through that.
I don't know exactly what all she went through in the therapy, like what they had her
Right.
do, but yes,
You can
that is the
imagine.
gist of it.
Yeah.
So,
Then she did go on to study nursing at Conestoga College, and, you know, she became a nurse.
yeah, she's like, screw you, Dad. I'm not going to pursue a religious
Yeah, I mean, totally good for her.
job.
in
Yeah.
that aspect.
She
Girl
kind of.
power.
Yes.
Overcome that. I mean, she wouldn't have had a happy career, you know, in a religious realm if this is her experience. So good for her. In 2007, Wetloffer was hired onto the staff at Crescent Care, which is a long-term care home in Woodstock, Ontario. She was initially regarded by her coworkers as someone who was very caring and professional. However, through her time there, Wetloffer struggled with substance abuse and alcoholism. She faced a lot of accusations of showing up to work drunk, and at one point, she was found passed out in the facility's basement during the night shift. To be fair, I would be 100% sober passed out in the basement during night shift because I go to bed at 9 p.m.
It's a struggle. Nurses
I-
like their coffee, though.
I know. So she was suspended 4 times for medication-related errors, which I feel like 4 suspensions is a lot. As someone who works with nurses all the time, it's going to take a lot less than 4 for you to be moved on, especially in travel nursing. Like, you get one chance and I think you're out. Then she was finally fired from Crescent Care in March of 2014 over a quote-unquote serious incident, between quotes, in which she gave the wrong medication to a patient, which I would qualify that as, yes, a serious incident. So she was there for 7 years. After leaving Crescent Care, Wetloffer had difficulty holding down other jobs. She was hired by the Meadow Park Care Center in London, but lost that job after checking herself into a drug rehab facility in Niagara. She took various temp jobs at other care homes. She admitted to a neighbor that she was fired from one of those jobs for stealing medication and was fired from another job for making a medication error while she was high at the time. That nearly resulted in the death of a patient. And they also threw in here that she wrote poetry about her desire to kill people. So then leads to her descent as a murderer.
Is London a town in Canada? You said in London. Or is that the
No, London
school?
Baptist.
Okay, gotcha.
No.
London Baptist Bible College.
Yes,
that
ma'am.
one. Yeah, so before she got to Crescent, she began nursing at Geraldine General Hospital, and she, in the podcast I was listening to, it said she was in charge of a trolley of drugs, which that just kind of makes me think of the trolley lady on the Hogwarts Express in Harry Potter. Like,
100%.
anything off the trolley, dears? And yes, I would like some drugs, please. That's where my mind went when I hear trolley. But she was in charge of a drug trolley, not entirely sure what that is, so we're in Canada. Off of this trolley, she had easy access to hydromorphone, not morphine. And then she also stole Ativan, and Ativan, aka Laura's. Oh my god, I'm just gonna butcher all of these.
I have said so many words wrong on this recording, the last recording. It's fine.
Lorazepam. Then we'll just go with that.
Lorazepam.
Lorazepam.
Say that again, Ashley.
No, it's recorded so you can hear it all you want later. AKA lorazepam, which this is used to treat seizures, depression, sleep disorders. Sometimes it's used in surgery. She began self-medicating her severe mood swings with this drug, and she built up a drug tolerance. Of course, in 1995, now she's 28 years old, she takes a lethal dose of Ativan while she's at work, and a coworker notices, something isn't right, gets her help, and this is, I think, the first time she gets fired from a hospital for stealing.
Did you say 1995?
Yeah.
Why? Because I'm just thinking back to her being at Crescent Care, and that started in 2007. So, like, her track record of being fired.
Let's see. I think I have.
Must have started, like, way early on.
I think I have that. Yeah. I don't know.
I'm definitely not saying you're wrong at all. I'm just trying to establish the timeline in my head, because this goes back to that thing that we always talk about with, like, background checks and how are you checking these medical professionals and stuff, because if she's been getting fired from jobs, healthcare jobs since 1995, like, hello, red flag.
And they try to, put something on her record, which this is kind of crazy to me.
Sorry, I didn't mean to mess you up.
No, you're good. I mean, we have to try to establish a timeline here. So yeah, she's fired from the hospital for stealing. So she does have a restriction put on her license, her nursing license. And she was told to remain sober and take substance abuse classes, and it's kind of like she's on parole almost.
Okay. Like she's on, like, kind of like a probationary period of...
That's exactly it. Okay. Yeah. So all of this, a restriction on her nursing license, that's on her public record, and to any nurse that can be detrimental. But for some reason, like, down the line, I found out that, so that was, my years are a little weird. But that was, like, only on her record for, like, 6 or 8 years or something, and then it, like, gets erased for some reason.
Got it.
Yeah. So she's fired. She tries to return to her faith, as she's going to do a few times while we're talking about her. She begins working at a retirement home. She does meet Danny Wetloffer, who's a local truck driver and of the same faith. They do get married, and at this time Elizabeth is 30 years old. Her parents, she's still feeling the pressure of her parents, especially her dad. They are happy that Elizabeth, is married to a man and she has a job at a retirement home. But Elizabeth does relapse and begins drinking again, and her and Donnie, not Danny, fight a lot.
Because she doesn't want to be with him, and she's drunk. It's hard to. I feel like it's probably hard to maintain a relationship, like a good one, with somebody if you're always on something.
Yeah. She tries to help herself. She seeks out psychiatric help, and it's here that we find out that she very well could have borderline personality disorder. She's prescribed antipsychotics, but this just doesn't help her at all. If anything, it makes her more dependent, and she doesn't want to be alone. But her marriage falls apart after Donnie finds out she began an online relationship with another woman. So they're married for 10 years, and then they get a divorce.
I'm surprised they were married for that long.
Yeah, that is a long time. But
did they have kids?
I don't think she ever had kids.
Probably for the best.
And I have that being written down in 2007 is when they get a divorce.
Well, maybe that explains, I don't know. Kind of like her life was very turbulent at that time, so things really start to spiral out of control.
Yeah. So Elizabeth and the lady that she met online, Maureen, they end up moving in together, and that is when Elizabeth finds out that Maureen has no source of income. And Elizabeth doesn't do well under pressure, so she's going through a divorce, she has a new relationship, and she's feeling the pressure of having to provide for Maureen now.
I mean, I feel like that's like a standard relationship interview question. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, what do you do for work?
You know?
I don't know.
They were not talking about work.
No, they were not. So in order to make more money, Elizabeth decides to leave the retirement home she was working at, and later gets hired at Crescent Care Nursing and Retirement Home. Words are really hard today, you guys.
I know.
I don't think this facility is very big. It's a 163 bed facility.
It's kind of...
It's a
I don't know.
good size.
I think it's a decent
but-
size.
Yeah. So after everything that was put on her public record, after being fired from the hospital and stealing drugs and everything, like during her interview, that's just never brought up, apparently, and Elizabeth doesn't disclose that happened. Go figure, the retirement home is short-staffed. So Elizabeth gets hired for $60,000 yearly wage, and
I feel like that's a good amount of money for the time and for the
Yeah.
job that she was doing.
totally, and you know, that's why she quit the other retirement home, because she needed more money, because Maureen apparently can't get a job.
Well, I feel like, $60,000 to work as a nurse in a long-term care facility a year, especially during that time, I think was a good amount of money. My mom was a nurse during this time as well, and I don't think she ever quite touched $60,000, and she was working in a hospital. So,
Also, maybe it's because we're in Canada. I don't
yeah,
know.
maybe.
Things were different. Who knows? Anyway, less than a month after starting at Crescent Care, she begins poisoning patients. So she's already going through a lot, but this is where what did you say?
I was just thinking, like, that's one way to handle the stress.
Yeah.
I was just like, I thought I was thinking it in my head, and it kind of came out, and I
heard like a weird little whisper.
Yeah, I was like, that's one way to do it.
So this is where she really, really begins to crack under pressure, and she starts feeling frequent surges to do terrible things and declares that God is talking to her and telling her to do them.
Oh, now God is talking to her.
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've heard of the term a visionary killer, but this is when the killer believes that they have visions from God or the devil or angels or demons, and are told to kill. So creepy
Very
stuff.
much so. Interesting.
Do they have a movie on this or like a documentary on this? Because I'd like to learn more. Do you guys know? No?
No idea.
I'm going to Google it.
Okay.
Visionary killer?
Visionary killer, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure there's stuff out there about it, I would imagine. Cults? I don't know.
Yeah, I would say that's a visionary killing genre.
Okay, so at this facility, well, I guess at any facility, at least in this time, so insulin is not considered a controlled substance. So it's not, under heavy protection. It's easy to get to because there are not addictive qualities.
Mm-hmm.
So Elizabeth has easy access to it. In August 2007, she administers a high dose of insulin to an elderly patient with diabetes who is eventually treated and lived, but this is just the beginning of Elizabeth spiraling out of control under all this pressure and apparently hearing voices telling her to do this. At this time, Maureen, her girlfriend, does leave her, so her personal life is not great. again, sadly. And so Elizabeth starts stealing narcotics from work again. And instead of Ativan, she goes back to hydromorphone, a pain reliever or opioid. And the way she easily gets this is by reviewing which patients are supposed to be receiving this drug. And she will keep it for herself and give the patient like a laxative or something instead.
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm. So that's how she gets it.
As I understand it now, when patients have to get those types of drugs, they have to be like scanned in, like there's like a whole system that prevents people from taking the drugs and keeping them.
Yeah.
And you have to check it, like, because they have to dispose of the vial or place it back. Like there's a whole check-in, check-out, scan it when you give it to the patient, because it records the timestamp, and then the time from when you do that to when you put it back in the closet or when you dispose of the vial, etc. So
yeah, a lot of changes,
thank God,
and things are implemented in the healthcare system because of people like this.
Good changes, though.
Yeah. So that's how she got that. So she isn't having a great personal life. She isn't having a great professional life. Like things at work are going downhill. She begins having a lot of verbal altercations with her coworkers. To put in perspective the stress she's dealing with, though, so a nurse to patient ratio was not really established, and Elizabeth was in charge of 32 patients.
Yeah, in these long-term care homes, these nurses are responsible for a lot more patients because they're not necessarily like needing emergent things. Like we're in an ICU, it's like 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 as the patient ratio. So like I've seen like when I'm building profiles for nurses and stuff, like I've seen people who lurking.
Words are hard to say. They're lurking.
They're not lurking. They're working in long-term care facilities. Like, and their patient load is like 1-to-22. So like they are taking on a lot of patients, but I feel like 32 is a high number.
That, I don't know. That would be so stressful. Did you find anything on Visionary Killers?
I couldn't find anything. The closest I found was a movie called The Voices. I guess Ryan Reynolds is in it.
So it's funny.
Well,
so it must be funny.
It's about murder.
I've never seen him so was Deadpool. I've never seen him in anything not funny.
Amityville Horror. He was in that.
Was he?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it sounds like it's a like a horror comedy, because I guess the cat talks, or like he envisions a cat talking that tells him like, you should kill a bunch of people because you were stood up, and then his dog's like, no, you should be a good person. And so
honestly, it sounds like a movie I want to watch.
Ryan Reynolds, everybody, the murderer, because his cat told him to.
At Van City Reynolds on Instagram.
Naturally, the dog is the good one, though.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, wow.
Moving on. We're talking about Elizabeth Wettlaufer.
Mm-hmm. So that is the stress that she's dealing with. She begins overdosing a good number of elderly patients with cognitive issues and diabetes, and it's not weird for patients with diabetes or anyone with diabetes to have insulin in their system. So 84-year-old James Silcox was a patient that she found very unpleasant. He had Alzheimer's, which led to him kind of having fits of rage. He would get frustrated that he would forget things, and I guess he just wasn't pleasant to be around. So Elizabeth prepared an insulin needle with 50 units of short-acting insulin and injects James, who dies later. And they say that he died from complications of a fractured hip, because he did have hip surgery, and that's what they went with. Also, I think the difference between short-acting insulin and long-acting insulin, and I could be wrong, but the short-acting, it doesn't last as long in the body. So,
or maybe it acts faster, and the long-acting insulin disperses over a period of time.
That makes sense too.
I
Yeah.
have no idea.
Let
I
us
don't take
know.
insulin.
I do not either. My guitarist has diabetes and has to take insulin like whenever we go out to eat. And I was going to ask him about it, but I totally forgot. But
Gotta find out.
Yeah. I'll have to ask him. Jack. What's up, Jack? He's not listening. Okay, so her next victim was Maurice Granit, who is 84. And
Good old Mo.
they had pancreatic cancer and was known to be inappropriate with nurses.
Hate that.
Yeah, which Elizabeth did not like. And she gave him a dose of insulin, and he died from it. They said it was old age debility.
This reminds me, I know we keep getting off topic, but of this shirt I saw that said dead men can't catcall.
Ooh.
And I'm like, well, this is kind of like that. So
Yeah,
she really took it to that level.
she did. And she's feeling pretty confident in all of this, I don't know, these terrible things that she's doing. Okay, so 2009, the staff begins complaining about Elizabeth's altercations she's having with coworkers. 2010, in 2010, for some reason, I just have written down that she didn't murder anyone until 2011. So she like took a year off from murdering people. I think it's because people were complaining about her and, eyes were kind of on her.
Maybe she was just maybe it was her New Year's resolution. Like, she's self-care.
Hey, you know what? She made it the whole year, and that's impressive because the gym goers, they make it through at least 3 weeks of January, and then the gym is empty again, and it's heaven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So, yes, 2011 is when she feels the surge again. So Gladys Millard, 87, Helen Matheson, 95, and Mary Zurowinski, 96, are all killed by an insulin overdose administered by Elizabeth.
In 1 year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, so she takes that year off, and then she's like, all right, let's do this again. It's terrible. I'm hearing voices.
Okay, I'm looking down this list, and there are so many names.
Mm-hmm. People in Elizabeth's life notice that she's not very remorseful, or she's just very dismissive whenever she talks about someone dying at work. She does even confess to a few people that she has done these things. She confesses to a coworker, and then she eventually confesses to a priest. But nothing is done. Yes.
Does anybody know are priests mandatory reporters? So like if you're in confession and you report that you've, because I don't know, they're not?
I don't think so. I don't know. So I grew up Jehovah's Witness, right?
Okay.
And anything illegal was handled by the elders, like in the they don't call it a church, but in the Kingdom Hall, right?
Okay.
So that's why there was so many. I'm no longer Jehovah's Witness, and if you are, I'm not trying to be offensive, but there is a bunch of things that happened in the early 2000s where, like, there were cases of like
cover-ups. And stuff.
Like cover-ups of all sorts of sexual harassment stuff that happened, and it was just because the elders were taking care of it within the church. I don't know if it's like that for any other religion, but I know it's like that for
I
the
grew
witnesses.
up Catholic, but I'm no longer Catholic. And so that's why I'm just wondering, because I'm like, I haven't been to confession in a really long time. And by the last time I went to confession, I was really young. So I guess I just am wondering if priests, if you confess to a priest, if they are obligated to report that to the police.
Yeah.
I don't know. It may not have been back then, but I know after all that stuff went down with the witnesses, there was a lot of law involved and cases that would go back like 20 years that were settled or handled.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, if priests are not mandatory reporters, then if you want to get something off your chest, like the murder you committed, that is the person to go to. Don't tell your boyfriend. Don't tell your girlfriend. Don't tell your ex-boyfriend or your ex-girlfriend. Tell your priest. Here for advice. I'll be here all week.
So yes, nothing is done, and it's almost like she is kind of crying out for help a little bit. But she eventually kills again. She kills Helen Young, and then she kills Maureen Pickering, both older ladies. Finally, a medication error is brought up to Elizabeth's attention at the facility, and she gets fired again. No charges are brought to her, and there's no investigation because, like we've talked about before, when something like this happens at a hospital, they don't want to hurt their reputation, you know?
Right.
And also, to take someone to court and pursue an investigation, everything that costs money.
Mm-hmm. And not a lot of facilities are that well funded.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them.
Yeah. So she is let go. She easily finds work at a new facility, though, at Meadow Park. And it didn't matter where she was. She always felt the surge. She had voices talking to her, telling her to overdose people. She kills her next victim, Arpad Harvath, who is 75, after killing him.
I just want to say London, Ontario is a place. Meadow Park is in London, Ontario.
Okay. Very nice.
Bringing it back.
So after she kills Arpad, she steals some more hydromorphone and resigns.
Get my ish and get out.
Yeah, for real. She nearly kills herself from ODing, and after that, she survives and starts going to AA meetings and substance abuse meetings. Like, it seems like she keeps doing this. This is the pattern. She will go down this rabbit hole and do all these drugs, and then she like tries to get herself help, and then she just keeps relapsing.
So it seems to me like there's some sort of moral part of her that does exist, and a part of her who wants to be better than she is.
Yes, and this is how she eventually gets caught. Is she does have a bit of a conscience.
So yeah, priests do not.
I knew you were looking that up. They're not mandatory
They're
reporters.
not obligated. No matter the severity of the crime. So
Did you just Google that?
as of 2018.
Dang.
Yeah. Thanks, internet.
I feel like so many people in this world should be mandatory reporters. Just saying. We are going to let you finish the story of Elizabeth Wettlaufer
This is
eventually.
great. We're having great conversations. She does eventually also realize that the voice in her head is probably not God. It's probably the devil. There's that.
Probably the drugs and the alcohol and the mental illness.
Yes. That's most likely it. She tries to steer clear of working at large facilities to resist the temptation of having access to all these drugs. So she tries to nurse for private residences, but she just administers 180 milligrams of insulin to Beverly Burtman, who surprisingly lives, but that is an insane amount of insulin to give someone. So her plan to work at private residences does not work.
Yeah, I bet not.
Oh my gosh. So she finally has a wake-up call when the opportunity is presented to her to work with kids as a nurse at an elementary school. And she realizes she does not want to hurt kids.
Well, that's like a positive life step.
She has a little bit of conscience that keeps surfacing.
Because, there are boundaries.
So she turns down the position.
Oh, because she doesn't trust herself?
Yeah, she doesn't trust herself and doesn't
okay.
want to hurt kids.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Respect.
She begins feeling guilty and submits herself to the Center of Addiction and Mental Health. And this is September 2016. She eventually tells her psychiatrist that she has killed many patients due to HIPAA laws. And so kind of going back to the priest thing, like there's patient confidentiality.
Right.
So a psychiatrist can't just turn around and go to the authorities right away. So the psychiatrist like has her fill out a form, and like once he realizes, yeah, she's like straight up confessing to murders, then it's time
Right.
to notify the police. So law enforcement questions and observes Elizabeth. She's just coming clean, and she even tells them about the voices in her head telling her to do these things. She claims that she was fully aware of what she was doing, that it was wrong. So by doing this, she can't plea insanity. But confession to the murders alone isn't enough, so they do have to gather evidence, which they do. So finally, October 2016, she is arrested and charged on 8 counts of murder, which there was so much more. She pleads guilty, no questions asked, and she's given 8 life terms without parole. And this happens over 10 years. Like, she's killing people over 10 years, and without confessing, like, who knows if she would have been caught, you know?
And I have some interesting details about her confessing and whatever.
Go
now
for
a
it.
good time.
It is a great time
Okay.
because that's like all I got.
Perfect. So not only did her psychiatrist at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health in Toronto notify the police, but they also notified the College of Nurses in Ontario, which I think is the right step because, you know, she could get released and go start practicing as a nurse again. But then Elizabeth actually emailed the CNO. Not the CNO. CNO. Oh my God. College of Nurses of Ontario. She emailed them to resign as a registered nurse because she had, quote, deliberately harmed patients in her care and was now being investigated by the police for that. End quote. And she personally called an investigator from the College of Nurses of Ontario and then had the Center of Addiction and Mental Health staff fax a 4-page handwritten confession. She had, oh my gosh, now I lost my place. She had, She had confessed to killing patients several times prior to her confession, including to a lawyer who advised her to keep it a secret, and it was never reported to the police. And then she finally provides, after providing police with a 2-hour-long confession, she was formally charged with 8 murders on October 25th. So she had tried to tell people, like she had tried to come clean and make it right. And, you know, the lawyer was like, no, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. She was just done with it, you know?
Which I will say, this is not a quality we have seen thus far in anyone we've talked about that has committed any of these murders or atrocious crimes. So, like, I gotta give her, like, a tiny bit of credit. Like, yeah, she definitely still killed people and she's a sucky person, but, I mean, she did try and I don't know. I'm not justifying what she did at all, but, like, I just will say she did try to make it right. And I think if you're gonna commit a crime, like, you should do everything in your ability to make it right.
For sure. I do have that she's currently in a secure psychiatry facility. Like, they took her out of
You mean
jail.
psychiatry or psychiatric?
Yeah, that. What did I say? God damn.
Coronary, ammonia, rhubarb.
Wow, you're making notes of all of these.
Oh, girl, we got a list.
I know. Oh, I'm not used to talking so much. I just get all blah, blah, blah.
La 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 la
Blah,
la.
blah, blah. Yeah, that's the crazy story of the Canadian nurse, Elizabeth Wettlaufer.
Wow.
God, don't do anything Elizabeth Wettlaufer did. Don't steal meds. Don't get the wrong meds. Don't get high at work. Don't be drunk at work. Don't be asleep at work.
And if you hear any other voices other than like your internal monologue,
Yeah.
right? Like
Seek help.
seek help.
Absolutely.
Ask anybody else if they are hearing it, and if they're not, it's probably you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what we didn't do, you guys? We didn't decide who we're doing next time.
Oh, it'll be a surprise.
Yeah, it'll be a surprise for all of us.
Be a surprise, unless we want to look through here real quick.
It's probably going to be somebody in the healthcare field
I would guess.
or medical field of
Who
some sort.
Likely is narcissistic or unhappy with themselves who commits murder.
Or some sort of crime in general, right? Have we done a crime that hasn't been a murder?
Everything has involved murder.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, tune in next time and see, right? Maybe it won't be a murder this time.
Good cover, Dolan.
Maybe.
It'll be a surprise.
We all like surprises, right?
Murder.
Murder.
Thank you for listening to Healthcare Horrors, brought to you by Atlas MedStaff. Just a reminder, we are not healthcare professionals. We are just fans of true crime, talking about some of history's darkest moments in healthcare. Stay tuned, stay healthy, and stay safe.
Healthcare horrors. Murder.